We're here live on 92.7 Laser FM, and we're talking about Metalocalypse on this episode. It's going to be a banging show tonight, folks, so strap in and buckle down and prepare your asses.
Take your vitamins. Square dogs to episode 2 of the Laser Comb podcast, the podcast where we comb through random episodes of classic TV shows with a fine-tooth laser. I am one of your hosts, NeoCal.
And I am your other host, Christopher Siege.
Siege, we are reviewing the 31st episode of Metalocalypse.
Yes.
Which is season 2, episode 11, Dethrace. All right, so at the end of episode 1 of the Laser Comb podcast, I chose Metalocalypse for the next episode.
Yep.
You did a random number generator, and here we are.
Here we are.
Here we fucking are.
Episode 31. So a little bit of background about Metalocalypse. Metalocalypse originally premiered on August 6th, 2006. It ran for a total of 4 seasons plus one like little wrap-up special. They recently, and by recently I mean at the time of recording, in May 2021, they announced there's actually going to be a feature film to air on HBO Max that's going to serve to like kind of wrap up the story of the show, because the show was kind of unceremoniously canceled before its time. But it did manage to run, as I said, it did manage to run for a total of 4 seasons. It ran all the way until October of 2013. I was a big fan of the show back in the day. I was a young metalhead in my early to mid 20s in the mid to late 2000s, and so this show was my jam.
I found this later on in life. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Later than you did. Yeah. My friend was like, "Have you just seen this?" And I was like, well, wait a second, Death Clock. There's a song on Guitar Hero.
Right.
Guitar and he's like, yeah, Thunder Horse. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking love that song. He's like, check these guys out. And I was just immature enough to love it.
I actually, one of the reasons why I checked out Metalocalypse to begin with, in addition to, as I said, being a metalhead at the time, and in particular being into like melodic death metal, which is the kind of music that the fictional band in this show, Death Clock, plays.
How dare you say they're fictional?
But the creator of the show, and indeed the voice of, I believe he's the voice of Nathan Explosion, and the guy who wrote and performed most of the music for Death Clock, Brendan Small, he was, prior to this, the creator of a show called Home Movies.
Oh shit, you watched Home Movies?
I did, yeah, back in the early to mid 2000s.
I would just catch it here or there. Like I never watched it in completion.
To this day, one of the characters in the show, Coach McGurk, I believe his name was voiced by one H. John Benjamin, who would later go on to voice Sterling Archer and the main character from Bob's Burgers. But to this day, whenever I'm watching like Archer, I just hear Coach McGurk.
You hear the coach.
Yeah.
The first time by the way, not a big fan of Archer. Shots fired.
Oh shit. I dig Archer, but yeah, that's fair. I'm not a big fan of Bob's Burgers personally.
See, I love Bob's Burgers. Like I think it's fucking great.
Oh shit. You heard it here, folks. This is where the divide starts.
Yeah. Yeah. One of us is NWO and one of us
is Team WCW.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and when I heard Archer's voice, I was like, wait a second. That's the coach from Home Movies.
Yeah, yeah. Funny enough, despite like being a big fan of this show, I to this day have never seen the fourth season,
I've
which
only seen
aired
the first three or two. Three. I've seen the first three.
the first three.
Right, right. I didn't even know there was a fourth season.
Yeah. The third season of the show kind of broke format a little bit in terms of runtime, because like the show was short, like episodes were like 10 or 11 minutes long a piece, but in the third season it went to a full like 22 minutes. But then apparently for the fourth season, and I remember the third season not being that great, but apparently for the fourth season they went back to the 11-minute episode length format, and then the show got canceled. Cheers.
Dang it.
Gosh dang it. Yeah, Metalocalypse. I have a lot of nostalgia for this show. I had the first couple seasons on DVD back in like 2008, 2009 ish. I had their first couple CDs, the Death album and the Death album too. Some great songs on the Death album. My favorite being a song called "The Lost Vikings."
Yeah, my friend owned it.
Yeah, the Lost Vikings is a pretty hilarious track about, quite literally, about a group of like Viking marauders like getting lost on their way to the battle that they're supposed to ride into and win. And they start like feeling really uneasy and start losing confidence about the fact that they have no idea where they're going, but they decide to just keep riding. And it the music style of the song is very much a riff on the sound of Amon Amarth, which is my favorite band.
So there you go.
Yeah.
It jives with you.
It does, yeah. So yeah, 31st episode overall, as chosen by the random number generator. So do we want to dive right into it?
Yes.
So we start with in a big like big arena, and the bassist of the band, William Murderface is playing the American national anthem on bass with his dick.
Yeah. And we get an up close shot of his hairy, terrible backside.
Yep. Warts and all. What? Literally warts and all.
Yep. And he's
so immediately he is playing. And so immediately, like you were saying, you were just immature enough at the time you discovered this show to appreciate it.
Yeah. I was like, fuck yeah.
And this is the joke. This is the gag that we open with.
And I like it. And it's not great, but the fact he can play it at all is impressive.
Yeah. I mean, I can't do that, so
I've never tried, but I imagine it would hurt.
So a couple other band members of Death Clock, Nathan Explosion and Pickles the drummer, are watching TV. They're watching Murderface do this on TV, and Murderface's performance gets interrupted by like live news footage of a hot rod in a high-speed police chase, and the hot rod is being driven by the remaining two members of the band, Toki Wartooth and
Skwisgar.
Right, there it is. One thing I want to point out about this car is the color scheme look familiar to you?
Like
We got the reddish orange with like the yellow wing on top. Looks like motherfucking Hot Rod from Transformers the movie.
I was just going to say, well, wait a second. That's kind of Hot Rodish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they were going for, but like it's evocative of that.
Yeah. It's fresh on our minds. So if it was by accident, we would never know. Yeah. So what's happening? Toki's shooting at the police copter.
Yep. Shoots the camera. They crash. We get the a kind of truncated version of the show's intro.
Yeah. A quicker version. Yeah.
Yeah. In the first season, I remember it was longer.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
But they cut it off for the second season.
You
see that a lot in TV, like they'll, especially in sitcoms and whatnot, like they'll eventually, as the show goes on, they'll like cut down the intro to save time, to either add in more commercials or have more time dedicated to the story.
I am suffering from the too much allergen.
So am I, my friend.
And I did not. I was silly, and I didn't take my medicine for it.
I took perhaps too much Reactin, and I'm actually have been feeling kind of groggy all day.
There we go. We have opposite feels. I look like I'm crying during Metalocalypse. You look fine.
So after the truncated intro, we get a news report like explaining what's going on with this high speed chase. And
I love this report.
And live on the scene is Officer James Goathor. Okay, Goathor is a band.
Yeah.
Goathor is actually a pretty fucking hyped band. I've seen them live twice over the years. First time I ever saw them live was during the Metal Blade 25th anniversary tour back in 2007.
Wow, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. They were playing, who else was playing? Cannibal Corpse was headlining that show. And Black Dahlia Murder was playing. And I think the Red Chord, and opening was a band called The Absence.
Wow, back when you'd actually go and see a lot of bands at a show.
It's pretty common in metal. I don't know about nowadays because I haven't been to a concert in like 3 years now.
Feels like it used to be the case with most music.
But like, and this was the thing, like back in like the 2000s, like people I know who would be like, man, I just paid like $250 for like nosebleed seats to go see Elton John or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And they're like, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, I'm going to like a 6 or 7 hour show with like 5 like fucking dope metal bands playing. Right? And they're like, oh, what does that cost? And they're like, oh, was it what kind of seating? I'm like, there's no seating, it's just open floor. So you just have to like mosh your way to the front. And they're like, oh, well, what did that cost? And I'm like, $25.
Feels like a bygone era.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, tickets to metal shows are more than that now, but like even the last show that I went to was like Ailstorm was headlining, and they had support from Necrogoblicon and Ether Realm.
Necrogoblicon.
Yeah.
I never heard that.
Which I found really amusing, because like Necrogoblicon was a band that I discovered in the mid 2000s because they had a song called Army of Goblins that I found really funny. And then like a decade later, they're just randomly playing with Ailstorm. And I'm like, oh, okay, sweet. Cool. And Ether Realm was a band I hadn't heard of when I went to see them. But I ended up like meeting their guitarist and like chatting with him for like 20 minutes or so. So sweet. That was pretty sweet. But yeah, even that ticket was only like $45.
Nice. Not bad.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, one thing I wanted to mention about the Absence, who opened on the Metal Blade 25th anniversary tour that I mentioned. They're pretty cool. But I inadvertently saw them live. I've seen them live like 6 or 7 times because around that time they were opening for like basically everyone, it seemed like.
Right. So inadvertently you had seen them many times.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the same with Belfagor. Belfagor is a black metal band. I think they're from Poland. But I've seen them live like 4 times. And like I like a couple of their albums, but I've seen them live like 4 times because there was a period where they seemed to be like playing with every other band that I was going to see.
Right. Opening for everyone.
Yeah. Anyway.
Ooh.
Back to the episodes.
Back to these episodes where we getting in troubles from cops.
Yeah, Skwisgar and Toki are booked. What the fuck is up with this news reporter's face?
Yeah, I think in season 1 or maybe earlier in season 2, he was live on the scene, and you know how it's a common like theme in Death Clock that something goes wrong and the audience or the police or the media gets like burned alive or crushed or run over or
well, and indeed it happens at the end of this episode.
And
yeah.
He was doing like a live report of like one of their shows or something, and something fell over and like scolded him during like the super graphic violent like outros that every episode has. But okay. I guess he's still alive because he's just doing the news again.
He's just
like nothing happened.
He's doing the news.
I like how
you know what? Good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, good for him. And he's wearing it with a smile. Yeah, and Metalocalypse gets Death Clock gets away with everything because what does the police officer Goat Horse say? He's like, well, we were ready to like shoot and kill these guys dead, but then we saw that it was members of Death Clock, and well, it's different. So they've got like a lot of like social immunity in this
diplomatic immunity.
We've got diplomats immunes.
Yeah, that was
diplomats immune systems.
That was a subtle reference to Lethal Weapon 2 there.
Oh, I thought so. Yeah.
The guy who like the politician or whatever who it turns out was like behind Riggs's wife dying. Like when Riggs has the chance to kill him, he's just like diplomatic immunity.
Oh, right.
And then Riggs just shoots him anyway or something. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in like 20 years.
Same. So what happens? They need to go to driving school.
So we get this like little scene with Murderface in his room, right. Watching a report about on TV about his performance being cut short. The telecast of his performance being cut short. There's a term from it that I'm kind of blanking on right now.
Yeah, they say it in the show. I can't remember, but
yeah. Preempted. Preempted. His being preempted to cover this car chase, and Murderface has this like little bit where he's like talking to himself in the mirror, being like, just once I want to be in the spotlight. I want the spotlight to be all about me. And he's like starts like whispering to himself.
That is like awfully emotionally like deep and pathetic. And whenever they have these like wholesome, like self-reflecting moments in this extremely violent, chaotic show, it's always like really fucking funny. He's just like staring in the mirror and he's like, you don't deserve to have the spotlight.
Just once I want the spotlight to be about me. Just once. That's all I want.
That's all I want. Not too much to ask.
Yeah. Fuck. Oh god, this show is hilarious.
So fun to do stupid ass impressions of them.
Yeah. So Toki and Skwisgar find out that they have to go to driving school, and they're
And do social and do public service.
which I find it like absolutely hysterical that this high speed police chase where they literally like fired bullets
guns
at shooting, and like their punishment is that they have to go to driving school.
Well, like the show's wildly satirical to the extreme.
Yeah,
that's what happens to celebrities, man. They get these high-speed chases. Hell, they even sometimes fucking kill people, and it's just like, you're on house arrest for a year.
Yep. Oh, don't do that again now.
Don't do that again. I don't want to be seen as transphobic, Caitlyn Jenner, but you don't run people over.
There was what's his name?
I love how that was a meme for like a year.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Caitlyn Jenner like running people over and suffering no consequences.
Right. I remember I'm completely blanking on his name.
Justin Bieber.
No, comedian. He was in Robin Hood Men in Tights. He played Achu. That's what I always associate him with, but he was like a big comedian in the like 2000s. That's gonna bother me.
Dave Chappelle, right?
Dave Chappelle, yes. There it is. I can't believe I couldn't pull that.
He disappeared for a long time. It's not your fault.
But I remember seeing this one bit at a friend's house, and this was probably in like 2006 or 2007. It was from Chappelle's show, his like stand-up thing.
I love that show.
I never really watched it much, but like there was this bit where he was doing stand-up and he was telling a story about being in a car with a white friend of his driving like 120 miles per hour in like a 60 zone or something like that.
Right.
And like the cop pulls him over and he's like, yeah, this, and I'm just getting ready for like this motherfucker to get arrested. And so the cop asks him like, oh, sir, do you know how fast you were going? And he's like, oh yeah, I was going 120 in a 60 zone. And he's like, yeah, well, what do you have to say for yourself? Oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that. Apparently the cop let him off with a warning. Oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to do that.
Well, now you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the band's manager comes in and explains that Toki and Skwisgar have to go to driving school, and Murderface has this like event that he wants to put on to like give him like a little bit more of the spotlight, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And their manager, whose name I can't remember, but their manager like actually asks Nathan and Pickles, who haven't been involved in anything in the show thus far, in the plot of this episode thus far. And indeed, we get a recurring joke throughout the episode. It's like the B plot, or it's like the C plot of the episode, is that they are just ambivalent about everything going on. And he's like, yeah, guys, yeah, you want to weigh in? And they're like, nope, just looking all relaxed. Yeah, no.
Yeah, they're like, you guys want to weigh in? Because it's what is he? He's like, maybe you can take over the fundraising event for Skwisgar and Toki, and then we can give him some of the spotlight so he feels less sad. What do you guys think? And they're just sitting there like, oh. And that's kind of like a running gag, is that I don't know if it's those two in particular, but like,
No, it is those two. I've watched this episode
they
3
just kind
times
of
now.
they just kind of is it usually those two, like being completely uninvolved? Is that like a trope throughout the series?
No, it's just this episode. Like I said, it's the C plot. So in sitcom writing in particular, which this show follows the structure of, you have the A plot, which is like the main thing that's kind of going on throughout the episode, which is Murderface's, the stuff going on with Murderface is the A plot. You have the B plot, which is the stuff going on with Toki and Skwisgar going to driving school.
Right.
And then the C plot in sitcom writing is usually just a recurring gag throughout the episode,
with characters that aren't necessarily involved that much.
Yeah. And so in this episode, the C plot is very clearly Nathan and Pickles just being like completely ambivalent to everything.
Being checked out watching TV all episode.
Yeah. And there is sitcom writing 101 from your instructor, Christopher Siege. Listeners.
There you go. Well, that's true. Yeah, you broke that down really, really well.
Well, if you know what they say, if you can't do, teach.
That's right.
So the rest of the band are on a motorcycle with like a series of interlocking sidecars, which I find hilarious.
I love that. There's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you to believe that only Nathan Explosion knows how to drive.
Yeah.
And he just ferries everyone else around.
Yeah. So he drops Toki and Skwisgar off at driving school, and he's like, okay, now remember to eat all of your lunch, and don't talk to anyone. There's weirdos out there.
Okay.
So it's like he's like their dad dropping them
I
off.
like how wholesome those stupid jokes are. I love that. This is a dangerous neighborhood, so stay safe.
Yeah. And so in typical fashion, like Skwisgar and Toki are like trying to one up each other right away about like who's going to be the better driver.
Yeah.
And then Toki just like runs off into traffic. And we don't see it, but it's implied he gets hit by a car.
Yeah.
And then we cut to a board meeting with the remaining 3 members of the band and their manager. And Murderface is like trying to pitch this vague idea that he has of something that he wants to do. He wants to create like the first like NASCAR festival experience,
but have it like metal and like have death
and also be fantasy themed. But like I'm not gonna lie, this actually kind of reminded me of like someone I know who like pitches me ideas for things sometimes. Or it's like, or it's just like a very like vague idea, like, oh, I kind of want to do this thing and this thing, and it's like, okay, well, what would that actually look like? I don't know, I just have ideas.
I wonder who this is.
Nobody, any of the listeners of this show know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, so the band manager is like trying to pry information from Murderface here, and Murderface is basically like, yeah, so I want it to be this like NASCAR like festival experience, kind of like medieval times. And so the manager is like, okay, so you want there to be race cars, but like also horses and jousting.
Yeah.
And Murderface is like, no, not like that, just like kind of like that, basically.
Yeah. He's got loose ideas of what he wants.
Yeah. And so the band manager is like, okay, so what does any of this have to do with Death Clock? And the other 2 members of the band.
I love this.
chime in, and we're like, we're Death Clock. Yeah, we're Death Clock. Yeah, we're Death Clock. Yeah.
I'm in Death Clock. Yeah, I'm the drummer for Death Clock.
Pickles the drummer, doodly doodly doo.
He's like, and then the what is it, Charles? It's a big long name, like Charles Foster Oftenson is their like manager, financial advisor.
Okay, so Charles, that's the manager's name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and he's just like, yes, I'm aware that you're all part of the band. That's not what I'm.
But what does any of this have to do with the music, though? Well, we're Death Clock.
Well, we're Death Clock. What would they do without this guy?
I know, and they're. But my favorite scene in this entire episode is later on. We'll get there soon because this episode isn't very long. But it's right before a press conference.
Yeah,
that's my favorite scene in this whole episode. Yeah,
yeah. So what's the school?
And so basically, Charles, their manager, is like, okay, whatever. So Nathan and Pickles, if this all involves Death Clock, how do you feel about this? Like we'll go forward with this, like if you guys want to do it. So how do you feel? And they're like, I could take or leave it. And he's like, okay, that's settled, and gets up and leaves.
All right, that's settled.
Murderface is like, you're just jealous, flips out, it's my time to shine, and leaves.
Yeah.
And then we cut to something that I completely forgot was a thing in this show, is like the tribunal.
Yeah.
That's watching it.
I remember them well.
It's a thing that I completely forgot about.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The tribunal that just kind of watches and analyzes and plans certain things, but they always like backfire or they accidentally help Death Clock.
Right.
And it's got that one guy who's like unloading the portfolio bio of Murderface.
Yeah, the psychological profile.
Psychological profile, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like where he has delusions of grandeur with an incredible with incredible bouts of depression, and his insecurity leads him to homicidal rage. And it's this big long rant with like close-up shots of his face and like a 3D scan of his body like spinning as he gives like a breakdown of
he has a desperate need to be in control, but doesn't have the drive to follow through on anything. Yeah. And so we go to
and then they like shit talk his like appearance for 30 seconds. He has acne here, and then I like how it's just like, and he has
triangle
thumbs.
Triangle hair.
And then at the very end, and triangle hair, and I'm like, what? What? I didn't know that was a thing.
So from there, we cut to the driving school, which is named Mr. Gojira's driving school.
Oh, Gojira. I saw that.
Gojira is the name of a metal band.
Yeah. And a play on Gojira, it's a Japanese driving instructor.
Yeah. So originally, like it's the name is from the Japanese name for Godzilla, but it's they're definitely referencing the metal band with this in the show.
Yeah.
I lived in a small town about a decade ago called Lake Cowichan.
Lake Cowichan.
Yes, lived there with my now ex-wife. It was really weird though, because like I knew and it was a small town. Like the population was only like 1,500 to 2,000 or something like that. And I knew a bunch of people amongst town who like really didn't listen to metal much, but like they all were really into Gojira, which I found so strange.
Huh.
They're like, yeah, I could take or leave metal, but like fucking Gojira, man.
That is a
Fucking
little.
Gojira is so sweet. And like I like to think because the town was so small, it was basically just
Like
like
one dude.
it was like one like stoner dude discovered this metal band and then started like introducing like all of his friends around town to
Yeah,
it, and
that's
like it
exactly
just
what I was thinking.
and it just spread. So like you had like this entire town that like of uh like late 20s early 30s dudes who like weren't into metal but like just really liked Gojira.
Yeah, that's where they draw the line.
Yeah, just Gojira.
Yeah,
um
weird.
yeah. So driving school involves a hilarious but also really disgusting like grindhouse style video showing what happens when you drunk drive.
With like a narrator at like a desk, like calmly explaining, like, oh, where are Sally's tits, you might ask? Well, why don't you ask her? Though it might be difficult for her to answer with her tits and brains 20 feet away from each other. And it's like all these hyper realistic for the show. Realistic. It's still a cartoon. But these hyper
That's a
like
long way
realistic.
for tits to be away from brains.
There it is. That's a long way for tits to be away from brains. Um, and yeah, it's all this hyper like realistic like gore scenes of like accident scenes.
There's one line in this that I actually almost quote tweeted earlier. I'm just gonna try and find it.
Oh, from this like little like
Yeah.
infomercial.
Oh, if the good Lord wanted us to drink and drive, we would have been born with smashed faces. If the good Lord wanted us to drink and drive, we would have been born with smashed faces.
That's sound logic.
Maybe I'll put the soundbite of that into this episode of the podcast.
So Toki and Skwisgar, like they're always like the emotionally young ones of Death Clock.
And oh indeed, yeah, they're extremely childlike.
And indeed in this, they're like absolutely traumatized by this like anti-drinking and driving ad.
Yeah.
And they are absolutely crippled with fear. So when the driving lessons actually start, they barely make it out of the parking lot.
Yeah. And then we cut away to a scene that I mentioned a couple minutes ago here. My favorite scene in the entire episode. Murderface is in his office,
stabbing his desk with a knife.
Stabbing his desk with a knife for some reason. And Charles, their band manager, comes in and is like, "What are you doing in here? Like, what are you working on?" And basically the gist of this scene is Murderface is like, "Oh yeah, well, I'm just getting ready for the show." And the band manager is like, "Okay, well, what are you working on? What are you doing? Because there's this that needs to be done. There's this that needs to be done." And Murderface is just like, yeah. He's like, "We have your
press conference.
You're habitually late on approving everything for the production design. You're giving the impression you don't know what you're doing. You have a press conference in literally 5 minutes."
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. His responses are just, yeah, fine, okay, sure, yeah. And then the band manager is like, "Okay, so you have this you have this thing that you have to do, like you have to approve like the budget or something like that." I can't remember. And Murderface is like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." He's like, you're going to do that right after the press conference, yes?" Well, yeah. And he like kind of throws his arms up and he's like, "Well, my work is done." Yeah. And walks out. I love how I love how like to the point this guy is, up to the point that he has to be. Like he's very direct and like tells
I
them
love this
exactly
character.
what they need to do. But when it becomes clear, like when he's delivered all of the information that they need, and it becomes clear that it's just gone out in one ear and out the other, he just throws his hands up and he's like, okay, well, my job's done.
Okay. Yeah, and walks away.
It's your problem now.
Yeah. He's to the point. He helps
Yeah.
as much to the best of his ability and puts no extra effort in when it goes to waste. He is an efficient man.
Yeah, he is it's a good way of putting it. He is an efficient man.
All right.
No more, no less.
Yeah.
So there's a brief scene with Toki and Skwisgar in their like driving car.
Toki's driving and Skwisgar's in the back.
Yeah, and Toki is like too scared to actually even like pull into traffic.
And the instructor's like shit talking him.
Yeah.
And Skwisgar gets like defensive, almost like a scared kind of like kid's voice. He's like, leave him alone. He's trying his best.
It's kind of sweet that he like decides to start sticking up for him.
That's their thing. They're like brothers that like fight and like rival or whatever like that, but they hold in a wholesome way. They like stick up for each other too.
Yeah. And then we cut to backstage at this press conference.
Oh, Murderface is nervous.
Yeah, Murderface is nervous.
Oh,
so
fuck, right, the pill.
So Pickles gives him a pill, and it's just like, yeah, I takes one of these whenever I feeling nervous or whatever.
I take one of these every time before a gig. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost went like vaguely Rat Trap there.
Really takes the edge off.
And so he pops it and immediately starts like it goes like completely.
He goes
like,
somewhere else.
Yeah.
His eyes are red and he's just.
Yeah, and he's like gumming his mouth like constantly and like drooling. And Nathan Explosion says to Pickles, he's like, man, maybe you gave him too much pills.
And he's like, no, I take one of those every time I can't remember what he says, every time before he has a date or something like that. And he's like, oh, well then it must be his nerves.
Yeah. I guess he's just that nervous. And so Murderface goes and gives like the worst press conference ever.
Yeah, they're asking him questions and he's just mumbling.
Yeah, just mumbling into the microphone, completely incoherent.
Yeah.
And then we jump ahead to the to whatever this festival that Murderface envisioned actually is, and it's a NASCAR event with like that's like narrated by a dude dressed as a wizard.
And there's like, it is medieval themed. There's a giant fire breathing like statue of a dragon overhanging the stage.
Yeah.
And between the stage and the audience rack where all the fans are is like
the stands. Yeah.
Like a race loop.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the contestants of this, whatever this is, are like, it's like four medieval looking dudes. Like one kind of looks like a Viking, like another like kind of looks like a rogue or an archer, and
they're all like semi medieval, but like also kind of Mad Max.
Yeah, and they have these like weird like Mad Max type cars, and they seem to be not racing but driving toward each other. Two of them on like each side are like driving toward each other. So I'm like, okay, so is this some like weird like insane like
race.
yeah, like medieval jousting, but with cars where you just smash into each other head first.
Yeah, it's like Chicken meets a destruction derby.
Yeah. So they take off and like race toward one another, and Murderface is on the track, like sliding his butt.
Oh, like a dog.
Like a dog,
yeah,
sliding his butt across the ground. And then we see Toki and Skwisgar are in a giant like F1 or in like a big like F1 car that looks like a giant like two-necked guitar.
Yeah, looking kind of scared. Is this like what? Why? What's going on there?
Yeah, what is going on there?
A Knievel stunt of some kind.
Yeah, and indeed they like they do like a big ramp jump and like crash into this big like dragon head, and credits roll. But we get some mayhem really going on
during... at the end, because like the other members of what is it? It's just Nathan and Pickles actually like performing.
Yeah. I forgot to mention that the whole band is performing at the show, which I find interesting because we've kind of established that this event, whatever it may be, had really nothing to do with the band. But
here they are.
But they're there to support
Metalocalypse fashion. The scenes get quicker and there's more violence. Skwisgar and Toki like go off a ramp and like fly and smash into the dragon head. The dragon head falls and lights all the audience members on fire. It's a very Metalocalypse ending. Yeah, as I mentioned, as credits roll, like just mayhem starts ensuing, and like the crowd like gets burned up. Like the car, like some of the like Dethrace cars like go flying, get launched into the crowd, and yeah. The episode ends with like Nathan and Pickles just standing there like with their arms crossed just watching, and they're like, one of them says to Murderface that he should shit his pants. And then presumably Murderface does, because he just yells out, I shit my pants. I shit my pants. And that's the episode. And that's your episode of Metalocalypse, folks. Yep. That was fun. I hadn't seen this show in many years now, so it was kind of fun to go back to it. I don't know if I'll go back to many other episodes than this, but I would go back to like the one with the nuclear submarine. I guess we didn't even talk about that. Like, what are some of your favorite episodes of the show? Because I have mine, definitely. Yeah, I can bring up a list of Metalocalypse episodes, but the where is it? Where's the one where they go deep into Mariana's Trench? So that they could Mermaider. What's that? Mermaider. Yeah. Mermaider. There we go. Yeah, it's a good one. The song Mermaider is good too. Yeah. Mermaider. It's about mermaid murder. This is the metal album for fish. Fish don't got no good metals to listen to. Mine being in a nuclear submarine, but Jesus Christ, Murderface, could you go easy on those beans? My favorite episode overall, top to bottom, is the fourth episode of season 1, Death Troll. Death Troll's pretty fucking good. Not gonna lie. Yeah, where they accidentally they go to some like Eastern European town and accidentally summon a lake troll with their music. Yeah, that's pretty great. And what are they? They're like on their death train.
They just have a train in that episode, and there's a like recurring joke about them having
death
cell
phones.
phones, the death phones. Yeah.
They're like, holy fuck, roaming charges even out here.
We have shared minutes. Murderface, get off the phone.
Right, their plans are like absolutely like atrocious.
Yeah, very, very of its time cell phone joke.
Yeah.
They find out that they have to defeat the troll with acoustic instruments, so they go to this bar, and they like shopkeep, who I think is voiced by one of the dudes from Metallica, hilariously enough.
Okay.
I think Lars Ulrich voices the shopkeep. But he opens up this door to the back to show them these acoustic instruments, and Murderface is like, "What are those wood things? Chairs?"
What are those wood things? Chairs?
Say acoustic instruments. Oh, you mean like
guitars?
Oh, you mean like a grandpa's guitar? Cool. Grandpa's guitar is for pussies and grandpas. I think you knows it. Listeners, as you can tell, we like this show.
Haha, Toki's can't read sheets musics.
And you?
No, shut up. You know I'm sensitive about that.
I have music dyslexia.
Music dyslexia. The reason they have to play grandpa's guitars is because they need to like serenade the troll back to his slumber.
Yeah.
Like an ancient spell.
Yeah, the C plot of that episode is Nathan is constantly like doing little recordings, being like, idea for a song, blah blah. And then at the end, when the troll is just about to eat them, he's like, last idea for a song ever, killed by a troll.
Killed by a troll. I think they kill him by just like getting angry and throwing a phone at him.
Yeah, throwing the phone, like doing like a what's that?
David and Goliath.
What's that weapon? It's not is it a mace?
A flail?
Where you like spin it and then throw it?
I don't know. Listeners, what is the medieval weapon that you spin and then throw?
Yeah, it's like on a handle attached to, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He like that's how he kills the troll, is he like throws the phone at it and ends up swallowing it and choking and dying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, listeners, Metalocalypse is fun. I think I can speak for both of us here and just to say that we both really like it. And yeah, I enjoyed this episode.
Me too.
All right. So that has been episode 31 of Metalocalypse. We will be back next week with an episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I put up a Twitter poll last week. I gave listeners and my Twitter followers 4 choices. The choices were Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Biker Mice from Mars, Toxic Crusaders, and Mummies Alive. I decided to throw the dice and just let other people decide which show we're going to be talking about. And Mighty Morphin Power Rangers actually won by a pretty wide margin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it the poll just closed at the time of recording, like maybe an hour ago, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers ended up getting a total of 50% of the votes.
Wow.
Yes. The direct runner-up was Biker Mice from Mars.
That's the one I voted for.
Mm.
Should have logged in with all my alt accounts.
Yeah, I mean, I have several Twitter accounts relating to tied to various podcasts that we do, so I could have like rigged it if I wanted to, but I decided not to.
That goes against your code.
All right. Now, so to find out which episode of Power Rangers we're going to do. List of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers episodes. I should have done this before we started recording, but it did not occur to me. All right.
Specifically just Mighty Morphin.
Yeah, so technically Power Rangers has been going on for
ever
28 seasons now.
Wow.
But per IMDb, IMDb treats them as different shows, so I'm just sticking with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. As fun as it would be to try and make sense of like Power Rangers Operation Overdrive, or
I've never even heard of that.
Some such shit. The only reason I know it exists is because I am staring at a list of episodes on Wikipedia.
Ooh. So how many
let's find out how many episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers there were. 145. Holy bejesus.
Wow.
All right.
Okay.
We are going to numbergenerator.org to generate one random number between numbers 1 and 145. And here we go.
Here we go.
We came up with episode 11.
Oh.
I wasn't expecting that low of a number, to be perfectly honest. So episode 11 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is the episode No Clowning Around. All right.
Oh shit. I'm not a huge Power Rangers fan, but I remember that episode.
I do really like Power Rangers. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I know I'm going to know which episode it is as soon as I hit play on Netflix. Yeah. So there we have it. Next week, we'll be back with episode 11 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. All
right. Can't wait.
If you want to pick a show for us to talk about a random episode of, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. And at the $25 tier, you can pick an episode. You can pick a show for us to review a random episode of on a future installment of this podcast. There's also a bunch of other stuff at lower tiers, like you get starting at the $5 and up tier, you get preamble audio before we stuff we record before and between various shows that we do. At the $10 and up tier, you get our monthly Too Much Galavar show where we review the individual issues of the 2021 IDW Beast Wars comic book. A new episode of that just went live, actually. And a whole bunch of other stuff. So check that out, patreon.com/lazorcomb. If you want to follow the show or us on social media, you can do so at facebook.com/lazorcomb, or you can follow me on Twitter at lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. Cal, you are at...
I am at Neo_Cal, KAL.
Yes. I think that about does it for this week. Thanks to everyone for listening. I have been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
And I'm NeoCal.
And until next week, bye-bye.
Doobly doo, doobly doo, doobly doo.
Another dimension.